thank you all for coming. As you are aware, Cleveland Public Power has experienced several outages over this past weekend. And we do apologize to our customers in advance for any inconvenience that they may have experienced. If one customer is out of power, that is one too many for us. So we'll continue to work and strive on reliability and redundancy to our system. I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Henderson, who's going to talk a little bit about what's causing some of these outages and what we're currently doing to mitigate the risk to our customers going forward. Commissioner.
All right, thank you. So in short, we did have an outage that began around 5 a.m. and we had crews out looking at the issue. We discovered that there were 2 cable faults. And this began Monday morning. We did dispatch, as I said, we began to look at the conditions of our cable and discovered that faulty conditions had occurred, at which time we began to notify and bring in resources to address that issue. We did transfer some customers and get them back online within about an hour and a half or so, and then begin the work of pulling cable and begin to splice the cable. So about, it was around 11 years.
Can we have you step down? Just one step down so we can pick up your audio.
So we were able to pull and get the customers back on around, actually it was around about 12:30 yesterday afternoon. We had all the customers back on, and that included most of the customers that were out for an extended period of time. At this time, we continue to follow up on some isolated outages, but primarily that was the cause. That was the actual outage. The cause of the outage related to increased consumption, heavily loaded consumption due to the temperature, basically. As you see, system-wide, not just in Cleveland, but nationally, as you see hot areas in the country, the grid is taxed, and as a result, you will see equipment begin to respond to being heavily used and basically overtaxed. So it was the increased consumption due to the weather, typically customers adding air conditioning, etc., utilizing that, and when you have a lot of customers using it at the same time because of the weather conditions, you're going to start seeing the grid react. So those were 2 of the primary issues. What we're doing to address that, in short, is we've actually made repairs to one of the cables, and we transfer customers back to one of those cables. The second cable that faulted, we're actually going to complete that today, and those customers will actually have, again, some more redundancy by those 2 cables in place, back in place. We also replaced what we call an annex or a mini substation that caused some low voltage issues. We're actually upgrading the transformers there, and that will also be done today. So we're responding to both issues, the cause of the outage and also taking some steps to improve electricity and the voltage in that area.
We want to talk just a little bit, and the Commissioner kind of touched on, focused on reliability and redundancy. And so we really are committed to doing those system improvements. And one of those projects that we have that's coming up is our 138 kV line that will give us a second feed to the west side. Now this is a $6 million project that will be completed at the end of this month. So we're looking forward to that. In addition, we have what we call the Southern Transmission Line project that will also give us redundancy and reliability and also loop our system so that we can have alternate feeds. And this is a $18 million project that will be going on that is going to help our system overall. And lastly, based on the outages from this weekend, there's software that we're looking at that will be able to look at voltages, look at things in real time, be able to be proactive when it comes to preventative maintenance and things of this type nature when it comes to our transformers and feeders and things of that type nature. So we'll continue to be committed to making these investments in our infrastructure. And again, we do apologize to our customers for any inconvenience that may have caused. And like I indicated before, one customer without power is one too many. And so again, we'll continue to work and strive in this area to increase our capacity as well as redundancy and reliability. And with that being said, we'll open it up to any questions that you may have.
Are these the same causes that caused the other outages over the past month or so on the west side, or are they pretty much caused by the same thing?
Right. So the incident that happened earlier in August, I believe about the 11th, that was related to a system-related outage on our grid level. These instances over this past weekend were on a feeder level on a much smaller level, so they were not related. In fact, if that same cable were in place now, the incident from yesterday would have still happened.
I've got a quick question for you, sir. You mentioned, Director, software that will help you do something that might predict it, if you will. Do you have any software that could send a signal throughout the system that would identify any weak spots, thus giving you a heads up? It's sort of like commercials we see on TV with plumbers or people who do plumbing jobs. They run a camera down the line and they see the weak spots, they know where they are, they can fix them. Does that software give you that capability to be able to do something like that to predict where the soft spots are, you can then direct them, affect them before they cause a power?
I'm glad you asked that question. That's a great question. And yes, it will do just that. And that's what we're focused on with this software. And so we'll be able to identify weaknesses. We'll be able to identify load and predictability of load. And so those are the type of things that we're looking at. Absolutely.
How soon will that be in place?
We are looking at that right now. It is at the executive level. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go forward. But we look to implement as soon as we can and as soon as we get clearance from our executive team.
So you fixed one cable already today. You said the second one should be completed later today. After that's done, how confident should residents of the west side be that they won't have any more power outages, or is there still that chance?
Right, so the particular customers that were affected by the two cables that faulted, they will be in top shape, so they should be fine. There should not be further problems with that cable. I mean, again, it is an underground cable, and in this instance, the repairs will be at industry standards, so there shouldn't be any additional issues there.
Are you all asking people to reduce their electrical use or anything?
No, not in particular. We're going to provide the power that they need, and that will be adequate for the load that's there.
So you don't see any rolling blackouts, for example, to be able to compensate for the heat. You know, there have been times in other places in the country where we say between 6 and 11 o'clock when there's peak, certain areas won't have it, or reduce power. Are you looking at any kind of rolling blackouts to accommodate?
No, in fact, we have increased in transformation there to enable the power to meet customers' needs and provide the power that's expected. So you should not even see voltage issues there at all. So there should be no reason for rolling blackouts or brownouts.
Over the last week, we've seen feeder issues, transformer fires, blown fuses, a number of different things. How much of that has to do with aging infrastructure and even maintenance? I mean, we don't see these issues happening in other areas, only specifically this west side of Cleveland. Why so many different issues in one place?
Well, it does appear as if they're all related, but they are in fact separate. As I mentioned earlier, the incidents that happened earlier earlier in the month were unrelated to the cause of the outage of this weekend. The age of the infrastructure is actually at an appropriate age and can handle the load, but we're seeing some unusual weather conditions, which has increased customer consumption of power, and that's causing equipment to overheat and fail. And some of the investments that we're making, we've talked about, will enable us to identify those early and proactively address those.
Are there any people without power right now?
At this time, all the customers that were out over the weekend are back in service.
How many were out?
We had, initially it was only about 500, and then we reduced that down to about 300.
How does that compare to the bigger one from earlier?
The bigger one involved over 30,000 customers, so it was a significantly larger group of customers involved and impacted.
Well, exactly how stable is the system right now? We have a hot day today, a hot day tomorrow, maybe even the day after that. How stable is the system at this point?
Well, I'm going to knock on wood if I can find some. To be honest with you, the integrity of our system is solid, but you do have situations that happen that are unexpected. So I can never say that you're going to have 100% reliability in a system. No one would say that.
What do you say to customers who are fed up and considering switching?
Again, we apologize for the inconvenience. We certainly appreciate the right to serve them and the ability to serve them. Ultimately, the customer will decide, but we hope that they remain with us.
Can you estimate a dollar loss that you guys incur, and also maybe somewhere down the line estimate what customers lost in terms of dollars also?
Well, that's a little more difficult. A 2 or 3 hour outage typically does not cause a major equipment failure. You may have some commodities that may spoil, so it's a little more difficult, and it's really a case-by-case basis.
I do want to add that if, we are right now assuming that all customers are restored, but we do want to point out that if customers are not restored or experiencing low voltage or whatever the case may be, that they reach out to Clean Public Power so that we can address their needs, as soon as we possibly can.